Joining us now here on Montana Talks, Jessica Rosenthal from Fox News Radio. Jessica, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for your firefighters for coming out here.
Yeah. So you're in California yourself as we speak.
Sure. Born and raised here, seen plenty of fires. I don't know where your Montana guys are going. I'm assuming the Paradise Fire, where the wind is, it doesn't look like today we've got a lot of wind up in Paradise, thank God. So it sounds like, at least in Paradise right now, that the real work is going to be search and rescue, or rather maybe search and recovery, really, to be honest. 42 people have already been found. The remains of 42 people have already been found deceased in that fire. And we do know many, many more, dozens and dozens more are reported missing. That's a fluid number, though, because as people check in or are found, it could certainly decrease, and we hope it does. But we could see more people deceased in the Paradise Fire. We do have one more day of wind here in Southern California, where I am, on the Woolsey Fire. But that's just one more day, and hopefully, no hot spots here will kick up. We're not seeing, big flames like we were earlier. So it's more of just a containment job. Now it's just making sure that no embers kick up, really, here in Southern California.
Yeah, I think I was seeing some of the headlines on the Drudge Report. This is apparently the deadliest fire in American history. 200 plus are still missing. Hopefully, most of them are alive, but I know folks are fearing the worst right now. I was reading some stories. I can't remember if it was in the Wall Street Journal or maybe at FoxNews.com, but one man was looking for his elderly mother who could not evacuate herself out of their house, and the whole neighborhood just went up in flames, and it moved so fast people could not escape. What are some of the stories that you're hearing?
Yeah, the same thing. It's just a disaster, really. It's kind of like what happened last year in the Santa Rosa area at 1 in the morning. People couldn't get out. In this case, you had sort of a twofold situation in the Paradise area. It sounds like some people were trying to get out and were in their vehicles when fire overcame their cars. So they were trying to do right by the situation. They were trying to get out and evacuate and do what they were told, and they still didn't make it. I read probably the most disturbing thing I heard was one woman said that she was on foot walking. She lost her house. She had to get out of her car. She was walking on foot to evacuate the neighborhood, and she walked by some of these cars that were on fire, and she could see people inside them. I can't imagine evacuating and watching people burn inside their cars. It blows the mind away. It's just unfathomable. So you're hearing stories like that, and then you're also hearing stories like what you're talking about people, being inside their homes and hoping for the worst, maybe staying, hoping for the best, maybe staying behind and thinking, that maybe they're going to be okay, and then they're not okay. So that missing number is really terrifying in this particular case, because we already have evidence of how devastating the Paradise Fire was, or the Camp Fire in Paradise was, and how many people have already died.
Yeah, I know Montana natives who have been living in California that lost their entire homes last year. In fact, I was covering one of the Trump rallies here earlier this year and met a mother and daughter who had moved because they lost everything and they just wanted a new start, so they moved to Montana. And it's sad to see this happen again, just 1 year later, but even at a much worse scale, it sounds like.
It does sound like. Last year's fire siege in Northern California was I think 17 fires total. And all of those fires combined resulted in, I think it was 44 deaths, and 8,900 structures gone, mostly in the town of Santa Rosa. This is one fire doing pretty much the same amount of damage, which is really, truly astounding. And it's really, I think, we keep seeing these fires. We keep seeing them over and over again. The Carr fire that happened earlier this year, the fire siege last year in Santa Rosa. Now we've had Malibu burn with Calabasas and Thousand Oaks in Southern California. It's not just these rural areas that are burning. It's places where you have a next door neighbor feet away from you. These are real packed in suburban neighborhoods. It's still technically wildland interface. It's still where, mountains and hillsides full of brush and sometimes trees meet the neighborhoods and meet areas where we've been building. And I know for years and I'm sure you guys too have talked about this, have talked about the idea of should we really be building, in these areas. And it is beautiful, and you can build a fire-safe community to a certain extent. But when you get winds over 40 miles an hour, and it's blowing across, brush that hasn't burned in 60 years, and it reaches a neighborhood, there's not much you can do.
Yeah, and then because there's more people living there, it's harder to get out because you have congested evacuation points and everything like that. Well, I know we want to say thanks to the firefighters' families because their loved ones are going to be headed out from home for the next couple of weeks. But then we also think about there was more than 90 first responders apparently, according to another Drudge Report headline, that also lost their homes. So here you've got police officers, firefighters out there who are helping to battle the fire or the effects of the fire, and they don't have a home to go back to, unfortunately, either. So just an incredible story. We're glad that some of our best are headed your way to help.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.